Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. The best products and even better sales staff at a service department that is second to none. It's all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Oh, it was fun to talk to Bill Bender, Sporting News, in the previous half hour. Now, we usually have a play-by-play call of the day. But when you get to this time of the year and there are no games on Monday, an all-star game on Tuesday, and no games on Wednesday, suddenly the well does run dry. So since the well has run dry, the play-by-play call of the day will return tomorrow, probably with an Astros-Rangers highlight, because that's the only game of the majors today. So get ready for that Astros-Rangers highlight tomorrow, Sean.
And unless something astronomical happens tonight at the World Series of Poker, one of the biggest bad beats ever in the history of the game, then we'll have either that or a baseball highlight. So
he played an ace. Oh, my goodness. It's like watching Daniel Craig in Casino Royale. where the play-by-play call of the day, a straight flush, a high hand. And the guy he beats, who, of course, is an international terrorist, ends up losing. Even though he had, he had a full house. And ended up losing. I mean, that's... I mean, that's bad.
That falls into the bad beat, especially the guy he's going up against if he, hit a sweet card there on the river.
Yeah. Mr. Bond, you changed your shirt. I hope our little game isn't making you perspire. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we can make that the play-by-play call of the day. Yeah. I mean, we can make that the play-by-play call of the day. You know, suddenly you're sitting there and the dramatic moment comes up. I mean, this is our play-by-play call of the day. This all fits into the World Series of Poker.
Gentlemen, showdown, please. Flush, ace, king, queen.
Now, this isn't as dramatic as an all-star game home run.
Full house, eight's full of aces.
Or maybe Rhys Hoskins hitting 3 home runs in a game and we play all 3. I mean, that's not that dramatic. I mean, but Sean brought up the World Series of Poker. You might as well go with one of the great poker scenes of all time, Casino Royale.
A higher full house. Ace is full of 6s.
Now, at this point, the terrorist thinks he has him.
Monsieur Bond?
So he moves the cards to the left. He has to turn the cards over himself. Bingo. A 5 and a 7 of spades.
Five and 7 of spades. The straight flush. 4 to the 8. The high hand.
Our play-by-play call of the day. You wanted poker. You got it.
Right at your fingertips. Well played.
Thank you, sir. With that, here in the Sunbury Motors studio, we bring in Mark Brennan from 24/7 Sports. Hello, Mark.
Yeah, nice to be here. Too bad we're not getting better weather, but hopefully it's going to get nicer as the weekend goes along.
Yeah, it'll be just great.
Tomorrow will be a perfect day to do Beaver Stadium tours.
Yeah, Beaver Stadium tours, and on top of that, also Live for Life will be tomorrow.
There you go.
What do you take out of that?
You know, this year, Steve, it's a little bit different for me. You know, one thing I was just asked by some folks on the network, our 247 network, what is the biggest question mark for the Penn State offense? And to me, it's leadership. You're looking at a team that I think we have talked about this. When you look at Penn State kind of across the board, it's athletic of a Penn State team, as I've seen, and I think you have kind of expressed similar sentiments. But when you look over on offense, one of the interesting things of the initial scholarship players, so these are kids who signed with Penn State out of high school. So they're not transfers, they're not walk-ons who earn scholarships. There is one skill player who has either junior or senior eligibility.
That's right.
And that's Nick Bowers.
Right.
So what does that tell you? That tells you that offense is really going to be looking for some leadership. Now, when you look at the offensive line, you have Michael Mennett, I think, is really going to be one of the better leaders they've had up front. I think it's just a natural thing for him. They have Will Fries, they have Gonzo. Those guys are both really good veteran players, but I don't think they're
But Mennett is a leader.
Yeah. And everything I heard, and I know you've been closer to the team. You were closer to the team through the spring, but that Mennett was really, stepped up as a center and a leader. Mm-hmm. But you look at the offensive skill positions, a load of talent. But where is the leadership going to come from? And when you break or when you get into that huddle and need to go 80 yards to win a game, the center's not always the guy who's going to give the motivational talk. You need a quarterback, a running back, somebody. How does this all tie back in? Because when I look at who the president of the Penn State chapter of Uplifting Athletes is right now, one of them is Sean Clifford.
That's right.
And I think that is a huge, huge deal. I think it's gone kind of overlooked because we're in the off season. But for him to step up into that sort of leadership role as a redshirt sophomore for an organization like that. So I know that was a roundabout way to get there, but I think so. I'm going to look at some of these young guys. The Freiermuths, the KJ Hamlers, the guys who have played a lot of football, and as they're going through Live for Life, who are looking like leadership guys out there, going through some of these things. So it's less about the competition's great and it's fun, and we're going to have a blasting Gonzo bench press 225 35 times or whatever, and all the other things. The guys who just arrived in their jerseys for the first time or second time, because we may see them today. Right. But to me, this year, that's kind of what I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, because I know when you talk to the players, when you ask them who are the leaders in these workouts, they'll go with two right away. They'll tell you Sean Clifford and Jonathan Sutherland is the guy that they mentioned. Those are the two guys that are universally mentioned. For Clifford, who's always had natural leadership ability anyway, even in the spring, he went through the entire spring, Mark, not exactly thinking he's the starting quarterback.
Exactly.
Right? Now the dynamics of this have changed for him because now he goes in. Look, when they go out to take ones, somebody's got to be out there for ones.
Right.
Okay? He'll be the guy who will be out there the first day for ones. So now he's got to take that. But each position needs a leader. I mean, each position, the wideouts need a leader.
Right.
The running backs need a leader.
Tight ends.
Tight ends need a leader. So, I mean, each position, defensive line, linebacker, the secondary, they all need their own leaders along the way. So it's more than just the one leader here and the one leader there. That's great, but each position does. And you talk about wide receiver. Well, let's see. Redshirt freshman, true sophomore, redshirt sophomore.
Right.
I mean, that's who they are.
Right, and that's why I'm saying a guy like KJ Hamler, he's played a lot of football. He's done a lot of big things.
He's a redshirt sophomore.
Right. I don't think people quite grasp that. But to me, it's going to be more important for a guy like Clifford, and here's why. Listen, Steve, we cover all the Penn State camps, and for the last couple of years, and I'm talking about when prospects and young high school students come up here for the camps that James Franklin and his staff hold every year. The last couple of years, since he's gotten to campus, Sean Clifford has been one of a lot of the players help coach in those camps, but you can see Sean Clifford at these camps was like really fitting in nicely as a coach at the camps, to the point where last year with Taquan Roberson,
yes,
he knew Roberson had committed to Penn State, and Sean Clifford was working with him, coaching him up, and to me that's a great sign that he's a natural leader. But I think it's going to be great to see what we see tomorrow, but then how does that translate when you're in the stadium here in front of 100,000 people? I think he's going to be fine because what we've seen has been great, but we're not positive yet.
Right. In fact, I'll give you a couple. When you talk about with Clifford, in the recruiting part of it a lot better than I ever would. But there's always a couple of guys that do a great job of them recruiting the other guys in their class. Clifford was that guy.
He committed early, yeah.
He committed early, but then was calling other people trying to get them to commit too. So he's always been like that.
They don't get KJ Hamler if they don't have Sean Clifford, because those two guys, even though Clifford was from Cincinnati and still is from Cincinnati, and KJ is from Detroit, by way of IMG Academy.
Right.
Those two developed a relationship going through the camp circuit during their high school days, and I don't think if they don't get Sean Clifford, I don't think they get KJ Hamler. So that's a great point, is that there are guys who emerge as natural kind of leaders and glue guys in these recruiting classes, and that's important.
Well, I was on Sirius 2 days ago.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
And don't call me Shirley. And I was on Sirius 2 days ago, and the topic of the quarterback part came up. And I said, look, he hasn't had to run a 2-minute drill in a game since high school. He hasn't had to go through back-to-back or 3 straight 3-and-outs and had to make an adjustment since high school. I said, there are a lot of people excited about what he can do. I said, he practices brilliantly, but, a game brings with it a dynamic. I said, which, by the way, is exactly the same answer I would have given you if we were talking about Tommy Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That's a part that people don't quite grasp. Even though he's older, he didn't have to go through 2 or 3 consecutive 3-and-outs and adjust. He not one time ran a 2-minute drill in a game. I said I'll be saying the same thing about him as I did about Sean Clifford.
Well, and actually, I think if you were to look at the pure quarterback dynamic of it, that you can say that when Clifford got his opportunities, in terms of throwing the ball,
great.
It was ridiculous. He was a drop pass from DeAndre Tompkins away from, in the bowl game, which should have been a touchdown,
right, from
having the greatest quarterback rating in the history of mankind. It's still ridiculously off the chart at this point, but so that's what I do like, that part, that when he was given the opportunity, he stepped, like in that bowl game, to me, when he came in, Steve, I said, they are going to throw it deep. Watch.
Well, Jack said that. On the broadcast, Jack said it right away. He said they're going deep here.
Because you knew we had seen enough of his arm, and you knew that they had enough confidence in him, and that Kentucky may not be looking for it. And unfortunately, with all due respect to DeAndre, who was a really nice player for Penn State, that was kind of an issue for the receiving corps, all year.
You're the one that, of course, looked at the roster right away, noticed right away that Jonathan Holland was not a part of it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, and then what the current tight end group looks like?
Listen, they don't discuss injuries, but clearly Jonathan Holland was a guy who struggled with injuries throughout his career.
Yes.
And it seems to me as if he's still at Penn State. I'm not positive about that, maybe going to grad school, so I don't think there was any ill will. When I saw him in the parking lot with Saquon and McSorley and some other former players who were drinking beers before the blue-white game, I had a feeling he was probably just kind of not playing out the string, but that he's a fifth-year guy.
He wouldn't go suit up that day?
Well, he wasn't.
He was already out.
Yeah, he wasn't drinking beers.
No.
But some of the other guys were enjoying themselves, which they should be. But
they're adults.
In terms of where they are tight end wise, he was going to have trouble, and I'm not saying this negatively toward him, but he was going to have trouble finding playing time this year because I think Freiermuth surprised really everybody last year in terms of everybody knew he was going to be a good player. And I predicted before the season that he had a chance to make an impact. I didn't think he was going to have a chance to make that sort of impact. And then Nick Bowers finally came along. And here's a guy who, you know this as well as anybody. You go into the Penn State weight room and you look up on the tight end, you look up on the big board, and Nick Bowers, he's going to test about as well as anybody not named Saquon. I mean, that's you look at the numbers that he's put up at, what is he, 6'4", 270, and has run incredibly well, an unbelievable NFL shuttle. He is really a tremendous athlete, but he's just been bumped up and bruised throughout his career. If they could keep those two guys healthy, I think they are going to have one of the best tight end tandems in the nation, not just in the Big Ten. Now, that's a big if because we haven't seen Bowers stay healthy. And then I think you're just going to see Zach Kuntz. I think you're just going to see him get better and better and better as he kind of fills out. And then they have an attractive option in Brenton Strange.
Tyler Bowen's very high on.
Yeah. So
Tyler told me the first week, he said, kind of feeling his way through. Then the last 3 weeks of the spring, he says, now we know we got a prospect.
And for people who don't know, he's a kid from West Virginia. He enrolled early, and I don't think people understand how important that is if kids can do it. I don't advocate people doing it because I would much rather see these kids enjoy their high school seasons. But if you're going to do it, you're going to reap some benefits. And I think he obviously did. But now, Steve, they're in a really nice position depth-wise where they don't necessarily have to force him into action. And with the new redshirt rules, they could get him in those 4 games. They have they have one outstanding tight end, one who could be outstanding if he stays healthy. Yeah. They have a real solid backup right now with a very tall upside in Zach Kuntz. And then you have Brenton Strange. So that's 4 guys who are – you have a legit – you go from last year when they entered the season with nobody having caught more than a handful of passes to, after Gesicki left, to now all of a sudden having an outstanding core of tight ends, and I think that's going to be a strength for them.
And then you saw in the bowl game on the touchdown catch the nice hands that Bowers has. I mean, that's
he's got it all.
Yeah, he does have an outstanding skill set.
And physical size, and he can block. Both of them. That's the other thing about this tight end group, especially the top 2 guys. Both of them could really block. I mean,
that's right.
Freiermuth, and I didn't realize this, and I should have realized this, but in talking to Tyler Bowen and talking to Freiermuth at the, I think we called it Freshman Day or whatever it was a couple months ago or a month ago, whenever it was, when we first got an opportunity to talk to them. He has, was it his brother who was an offensive lineman? And he has offensive line is kind of in his blood. Yeah. You knew something was going on there because you almost never see these freshman tight ends come in and immediately be able to block. And for him to be able to do that, I was like, whoa, this was impressive.
Oh, Mike Gesicki never had his hand in the dirt before he came here.
Right. He probably still doesn't have it in the dirt much.
Exactly. But you know what? But in this offense, everyone, you'll have people who are long-time Penn State fans, and they will complain no fullback. That is the fullback.
Right. Well, that's why they call him tight end / H-back.
Right. That is the fullback. That is the lead blocker going into the hole. Just watch what he does on a running play, and that'll tell you exactly the kind of hybrid position that he is playing. Defensively, when you look at the speed on defense, what sticks out to you about it? And then is there an incoming player that could be significant to help in the 2 deep?
Yeah, I'll be a homer, and I'll say that I think Keaton Ellis has an opportunity to help them as a defensive back. And that's no disrespect toward Brandon Smith, a 5-star linebacker who I think has an opportunity to be really good, or the kid from Michigan whose name's escaping me.
Lance Dixon.
Lance Dixon. I think both those kids have a chance to be really good, but I think there's some talent stacked up in front of them right now, and it may take them a little time.
Good.
Yeah, I think that
that means they've recruited right.
I don't think people understand how the size of Keaton Ellis. I mean, he's a legit 6 foot tall, probably 195 pounds, maybe 190, whatever.
Long arms.
And, we saw him play at State High. I saw him play an awful lot because my daughter was in the band. And Penn State got an absolute steal in that guy. And I'm being a homer, but I am also telling you that I would not say this unless I thought he was a legit player. So
look, I watched all the practices in the spring.
Yeah.
Can flat out play. I think of the guys they have coming in that have not been at spring practice, I'm interested to see, for example, what Jaquan Brisker can do, because I think in that safety spot, you'd like to go into the season feeling like you have 4.
And you're looking at a JUCO guy, an older guy who has played a lot of football, and physically, I forget what his height and weight were listed at on the roster, but it was one of those. I've gone through so many of them, but it was one of those where I looked at it and said, "Wow, this guy's ready to come in." And listen, I love Lamont Wade as a player. And I love Jonathan Sutherland as a player. Mm-hmm. I think Garrett Taylor obviously is going to be one of the guys. I think when we talk about leaders, I think he's a clear leader of this team. I thought he got better and better and better as last season went along.
Instinctive.
Right. But they have, in Sutherland and Lamont Wade, they have 2 guys who really have to kind of prove themselves. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have the JUCO kid is going to have every opportunity to come in and make an impact. I mean, that's going to be fun to watch him. But beyond that, I think they're to the point now defensively that they're not going to have to rely on, especially they have some tremendous young defensive ends. I don't know if you've gotten a look at some of these kids, but where are you going to force your way into the action when you have, Etor, Shaka Tony, Shane Simmons, obviously Jason Owe. These are
Daniel
guys.
Joseph that everybody forgets about.
Yeah, another one of the better athletes on the team.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. So you're
Adisa Isaac. There are times he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
Doesn't know what he's doing, and yet he'll figure out a way to make a play, even though he doesn't. That's what Bob says about this show.
There you go. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing, but somehow it comes together.
It comes together. I want to ask you about basketball in part because, I watched them work out, a little bit this week.
Yeah.
Penn State is making the transition in this particular year from being the consistent younger team to now being the older team. What kind of difference can that make? I mean, you can be the older team with bad players, but Penn State doesn't have bad players. So what can that mean for Penn State to make the transition to being the older team?
Well, I think, number one, getting Lamar Stevens back was gigantic. But to me, I think the biggest part now is how Mike Watkins is able to bring everything together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you hope as a person that he's able to become what he was before everything that happened, and before he had to deal with some of the things he's had to deal with. So, but I think so much of it, Steve, hinges on that because in Lamar, what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. That is not a wild card at all. And I will say the only wild card is that if he comes back and can shoot the 3, forget about it because now all of a sudden he's going to be unguardable. Right. I mean, you will not, and that's going to make every other that much more dangerous. Because opposing teams are going to have to pay that much more attention. But I just think the Mike Watkins thing is such a wild card that I'm pulling for him. And as media people, we're not supposed to do this, but knowing everything he went through, I hope he's able to get it all together. But it's a deal where I won't believe he's able to do it until we see it again. I think he kind of has to prove himself basketball-wise, not anything else. But if he's that player, then I think this is a legit NCAA team. But I think that's a big if. They have other really nice pieces. I think Miles Dredd is going to have a really good year this year. Yeah. I had a chance to talk to John Hara at Coaches versus Cancer and was kind of surprised not only how he kind of looked physically. I think he dropped a few pounds, but he was a more outgoing. At least
very much so.
He always was kind of uncomfortable with the media, so I think you're seeing some maturity there, and that goes into being an older team, guys who have played a lot of ball. But I think a lot of it goes back to Mike Watkins.
And with Watkins, it was like the knee injury part was difficult because he didn't do any work last summer.
Right.
This summer's critical because he'll do work. And then when the season starts, he'll be a year and a half removed from that injury. And time, not only, quote, heals all wounds, but now he'll be a bit stronger, and he can always make the initial play.
Right.
But if you notice, when it needed a second or third,
he didn't
have the lift. He couldn't do it because of that knee. You're going to see that's a difference. They need to have – Wheeler needs to hit at least 1 to 2 jump shots in a game. I didn't say 10. I didn't say 5. I said 1 or 2.
Like a mini Ben Simmons.
Right? He needs to hit 1 or 2. That three-point line is going to be interesting this year. You're going to have a lot of people who think they can hit that shot.
That's not gonna bother Miles Dredd at all, though. I can tell you that much because
Look, I watched him shoot it yesterday. He believe me,
he could shoot.
No
he
issue
can do this.
shooting.
He is the kind of shooter who can do from NBA
He had
range.
no issue shooting. It's not going to be an issue for Myron Jones either, in terms of the distance of it. But it's going to be an issue in games. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was moved back for a reason.
Right. And that could, that could play to Penn State's benefit.
It can.
It really could, because they're a team that has kind of struggled with the three, so they're used to it being a difficult thing for them.
And also, look at the line on the court. It's subtle, but it's not a complete arc, right? Because you're going to be
goes in the corner, right?
Right, because of the corners, right? It's like the NBA. It gets to 22 feet. They keep it at 22 feet, right? But here's the thing, watch early in the season. The number of guys on every team that step out of bounds.
Yeah, I knew it. Who was the guy from, was it Ohio? The Penn State guy, he transferred after 1 year. I think he had
Lewis.
He led the nation.
Trey Lewis.
He had to lead the nation in stepping out of bounds.
Trey Lewis stepped out of bounds left and right, transferred to Cleveland State, and then finished at Louisville.
Unreal.
Remember, he and Lee, the kid from Drexel?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole big thing about they couldn't go to the NCAA tournament.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, one thing you mentioned the NBA. I got to tell you, I had a chance to watch Josh Reeves.
He is something on this summer league.
You know what? It's happening for a good kid. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but I'm fairly certain he was not on a two-way contract. It is
Exhibit
10.
It's called an E10.
Yeah, Exhibit 10.
So, but he is a part of the 17-man roster as an E10.
So he's automatically invited to camp.
Yes.
And if he is cut, he gets a $50,000 bonus if he signs with a G League team.
Right.
So he's going to be okay financially for the short term. But I think all of a sudden now we're looking at bigger things for him.
Oh yeah, bigger things, because right now, because his base salary would be $35.
Right.
In the G League, the $50,000 bonus gets him to $85.
Yeah.
Right, so that's where that E10. That's the technicality of the E10.
The reason they're doing that, and it's interesting to learn all this because I didn't realize it, is to act as an incentive for guys not to go over to Europe.
Right.
And I think Josh. I mean, it's been fun watching him play. He's been one of the best all-around players out there. I feel bad for Tony Carr because I think when he's played the last couple games, he's played well for the Pelicans, but I don't think that's a good organization for him right now. I think
David Griffin didn't draft him.
No, I know that, and that's why I'm saying I'm hoping that with what he's done in limited minutes the last couple games, somebody else is going to give him an opportunity to maybe go to camp with them, because I don't think he has any shot. When you look at what they have with Drew Holiday, with
he is
Lonzo
not
Ball,
on the 17-man roster.
Right. So hopefully, I'm just hoping for him. If not, listen, he'll be another one of the Penn State guys who makes a boatload of money. Not a boatload, but enough to set yourselves up for a solid foundation for the rest of your life playing over in Europe. But I just think you're looking at both of their kind of arcs right now, and all of a sudden it's looking like Josh Reeves. I mean, and the other thing, Steve, out there, to me, he looks. I thought he would look a little smaller physically against these NBA guys, and not whatsoever.
No.
I mean, he was. He's out there getting it done offensively. You knew he was going to do it defensively. Playing point guard, limited turnovers in his first 3 games. So I really have.
And shot the three well.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of we're about to hit Live for Life tomorrow. Big Ten Media Days next week, so I have a little bit of free time at home, so I could focus in on watching some of the stuff that otherwise you don't usually get a chance to watch. And as much of a nerd as I am, yes, I was watching NBA Summer League stuff.
That's okay. I mean, at some point, Tony Carr might end up with, the Atlanta Hawks.
Who I don't know their situation enough, but he has to end up with a team that is not as stacked with point guards as that them.
Well, they had Trae Young, but I'm just saying, like a team like that.
Yeah.
Like, guess what? They still pay you.
Yeah.
You may be the last outpost. You're with the Sacramento Kings. They still give you money.
It's better than being being a sports reporter or being on radio. I can tell you that much.
Well,
salary-wise.
Yeah, salary.
Well, for us, not for you.
I sort of have fun. I have a lot of fun doing what I do. All right, my friend.
Appreciate you having me on.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in beautiful downtown Hummel's Wharf. where you-know-who could be king. Huh? Right?
Speaking of king, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. The most interesting man on the entire East Coast.
Yeah, I'm going to see him Saturday. I'm going to go over and see him Saturday morning because he's having hip replacement surgery on Tuesday. So I'm going to stop by for a few minutes and see him. Then I'll stop by and see him for a few minutes after he has the surgery. But, he says he's going to be up and around.
Oh, he's got to be chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I would think so. The last time he and I were together was 7 weeks ago. And, geez, Sean, he was in a lot of pain. I mean, he really was in a lot of pain. He had a cane, and he left it in the truck, and he walked in. But then when it came time, because we went over to Cracker Barrel, all right. And then we sat there. We probably sat there for 2 hours. Breakfast took 20 minutes, but we sat there for 2 hours talking about 5,000 things. And when it came time to leave, that poor guy trying to get up out of the chair. I mean, I don't mean just like, okay, I'm going to stand here for a bit. Like, just getting out of the chair took minutes. So, he needs this. Yeah, I'm sure he'll mention it tomorrow on the show. And then Live for Life is tomorrow night. And that will be at Haluba. They'll open the doors at 4:30 at Haluba tomorrow for anybody here going there. And it'll run, I'd say it'll run till about 6:30. Can't picture going later than that. And there's several different events. To be honest with you, this is a workout day for them this Friday. It's a workout day. So they'll be doing some of the same things I've already watched them do in terms of getting ready for seasons and winter workouts and other workouts and things like that you watch them do. There are a lot of similarities. But the one that will attract everybody because you can really attach a number to it would be the bench press. How many reps will a Steven Gonzalez put up on the bench press, for example? People will be interested in that. What might a Micah Parsons do when he gets his opportunity? And things like that. I think that's, people will be very interested in that. Very interested. Yeah. All right. And not only that, after the flurry of free agency in the NBA, some in the NHL, and baseball playing games, we have had a slow week, yet we've talked about that. We've talked about a wide variety of subjects here in the last few days. The food thing actually, and Sean's the one that found this in Forbes, okay? But that drew more interest than anything. In fact, I got a call today from a guy that was very interested in both the nutrition interview I did 2 weeks ago. It was not on the station, but I did it for TV with Kayla Martin, the Penn State nutritionist. And in conjunction with the money that is spent on nutrition bars. Now, guess who that person was? Jack Ham. Jack is very, very nutrition conscious. Very. And we've talked about this many times. For example, he's been trying to cut as much additional oil base out of his diet. And he said to me, he said, I noticed, he says, look, all these years of, we will eat out on the road all the time, the whole group. He'll say, I noticed you never salt your food. I noticed you never put butter on anything, except maybe a roll. I said, and I noticed you don't eat many rolls anymore. And I said, there's reasons for that. I said, my reasoning is this. If you just look and read the ingredients, you'll see there's enough salt already in the food to begin with where I don't feel like I need more. You'll see that there's enough in there where I don't need to put butter on something like a potato or something like that. And I said, and with you, with your diet, I said, you talk about taking out the oil part of it. I said, Jack, there's already enough natural oil in many foods where you're already getting exactly what you need. And he says, exactly. He says, that's why, he says, it's the additional stuff that makes a difference. So I'm talking to Kayla Martin, the nutritionist at Penn State. And this was in conjunction with the fact that Penn State has 11 nutrition bars, 2 primaries at Rec Hall and at Lash Building, and 9 satellite ones on campus for athletes. And I was asking her about constructing diets and how body type means something, position means something as to what that diet needs to consist of. An offensive lineman is going to need more than a running back. That's an obvious, if you want to keep it in football. A forward in basketball is going to need more probably than a guard. But the bod pod that they have, which measures mass and body fat, is critical so everyone knows where they stand. So let's take Aeneas Hawkins. He'd be the most recent example. Aeneas Hawkins is about the same weight he was when he first got here. But the difference is, what they did was they stripped off the bad weight from him and then built his weight back up with the proper diet, the right strength and conditioning program, speed, and so forth. Where now the Aeneas Hawkins today is the same weight he was 2 years ago, except if you put him in the bod pod, the distribution is more on the lines of what you want to see for a man that size playing an athletic sport at a tough position, defensive tackle. Paris Palmer was like that. Paris Palmer right now is working with us at WPSU Channel 3. Remember when Paris got here, people saw him in the blue-white game. They couldn't believe how thin he was. Paris got here, he's about 295, 300. But again, same story. You put him in the bod pod, and you're looking at the numbers. You're saying, the fat content's a little bit more than we want here. So they stripped off the bad weight. And then at that point, Paris was down to 277 where he played the blue-white game. Well, then they started building him back up with, quote, the good weight. How you lift, how you go through your nutrition program, how many calories you consume. Are they the right calories, the right carbs? And he eventually got back up to 305 pounds. But it was a better weight, even though it's the same weight. So I'm talking with Kayla Martin about all of this. And for her, she has to administer this for 31 sports, but let's just keep this in a football realm. For her, it is great news when the athlete comes to her and says, look, I think I need to do something here. A, what am I doing wrong? And B, what do I need to do right? And she can then construct a plan for them. And if they follow the plan, nutritionally, they're on target because that's your fuel. That's part of your training. And as we were done with the interview, it turned out, when we did the interview at Lash Building in the Nutrition Center there, Sean Clifford came by. And Sean was putting together his meal after working out. So this would have been we did it on a late Tuesday morning. Like, I think we did the interview, I'd say about 10:30 we did this. So Sean comes over, he's done. And he's taking bang, he's putting it together, he's getting some oatmeal, and he puts it all together. She doesn't have to say a word. And he comes over and he explained to me that, they'd had a meeting a year ago a little bit more than a year ago, like in January of 2018, they had a meeting. And Sean said, look, I said, I need help. He said, because I'm wondering if a couple of the minor injuries I'm getting are because of maybe my diet. And so they laid out a plan. And then Kayla said to me after Sean left, he says, it's great when you see somebody that you don't have to see anything. You don't have to say anything to. That they're doing exactly what they need to because it's become habit forming for them. Because she observed what he was doing in his post-workout snack, meal, whatever you want to call it at that particular time. And she said to me, that's exactly what he should be having, and he knew it, and he did it by himself. I didn't have to say a word. So that's the point where you know you've got everything on track with an athlete. Okay, we'll wrap it up in a moment on News Radio 1070, WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Great to have you with us. King's with us tomorrow. Thanks to Bill Bender, Sporting News, and Mark Brennan, 24/7 Sports. Talked a lot about football today. Hey, next week's Big Ten Media Days are next week. Now, look, last year, of course, the news was what happened with Urban Meyer. But for the most part, there'll be some news, but there should not be anything earth-shattering next week. But we hit mid-July. We'll talk more about the Phillies in the second half tomorrow. We have talked a lot about the Phillies this week. But I think one of the primary points where now you need a season to see it, or at least a half season to see it, is I thought the Phillies management made every right move in the offseason. There is not a single move that they made that I disagree with. And they made a lot of moves, trades, signings, so forth. And it tells you, in reality, from a couple of years ago, how far behind they really were. Because despite all these great moves, they're still trying to fight to get to the top.
Your station for news, weather, business, and CBS Sports Radio. News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury and on WKOK.com.